Hi, I'm Kimberly Lebbing. Have you ever felt off or out of alignment either with your relationships or with your business? Maybe you're not where you want to be, and maybe you're not sure how to get there or what's stopping you. So, I want to share a little bit about my story and why I asked you those specific questions because I think it will help you understand a little bit more about why I do what I do. Growing up, I had very young parents, they were teens, and my dad was verbally abusive. I can specifically remember stories, one specific story when I was probably around 4 years old and just being a little girl playing with my toys, hanging out and creating a huge mess. I had a specific playroom in this really small place that we lived and had a mess. And I remember that he asked me to clean it up. I didn't do it. And the response or the reaction that he had out of that was like, it was this big. It was huge. At least to my little self, it was huge. And he he frequently reacted when things weren't quite the way he wanted them to be. So if things weren't put away the right way, or if you didn't do something the right way, he would respond like in this big, huge ball of anger. And one of the filters that I developed out of that was one of I it was safer to hide one, so I became really quiet, really shy. It was I had to get really good at pre-calculating like responses. So it created a lot of fear in me before I did anything. I would calculate without even really consciously knowing I was doing it. I would calculate how other people might respond to that. And I also developed this sense of unworthiness. He was verbally abusive, so I was constantly talked down to as well. And so growing up was hard. Going through grade school, I remember I would have this energy of I'm not wanted and I have to be careful and I have to pre-calculate. There were like there's all these things that I was doing. And as a result, I didn't have a lot of friends. I was terrified to speak. I was really withdrawn. And I came out of that shell a little bit when I hit high school, found alcohol that helped me, ironically, helped me overcome a little bit of that. And then I spiraled into this depressed state all through high school, college, was really a hot mess with spiraling up and down with relationships, with how I was showing up in school. This is just something that I noticed later. I was still put into leadership roles. I was still in high school, in college, in my first career. So it's always put into leadership roles. But because I was so up and down and inconsistent and at one point even suicidal, I was really struggling. And I didn't know what I needed, but I kept looking at outside things in order to try and make myself feel good on the inside. And I didn't even understand that this was happening. So fast forward to, I was in corporate America. Again, I was in a leadership role, but I didn't really believe that I deserved it. I didn't really believe I was worthy of it. So I stepped away, decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And then I started my entrepreneurial journey, which I'm sure you can imagine my beginning days, knowing that I had this history of all this up and down and not feeling worthy. And there was a lot of people pleasing thrown in there. I really, really struggled. I was inconsistent. I couldn't seem to get the traction that I wanted to get myself to the levels that I wanted to. And honestly, my relationships were all surface level because I was holding everybody at arm's length, even my husband, because it was scary and it was risky for me to get too close because ultimately what I was doing is I was protecting myself through those filters that I learned really, really young, at a young age, that happened first, as that little girl playing with her toys and then getting in trouble. So, what happened as an entrepreneur is what was the thing that was really life changing for me. I stumbled upon a seminar of a mindset coach, walked in unknowing, knowing that I needed something, but I wasn't sure what it was. And that was my wake up call. He talked to the whole room, but I felt like he was talking to me. He talked to me about our words. He talked about like how our words shape our behavior, our actions, all of this, and how even the words we grew up with would affect us. And that was really that's where the light bulb went on. And I was like, oh, whoa, because I knew what I had gone through with my dad. And I also knew how hard I was trying not to do and repeat the same pattern that was in our family. And so I began this personal growth journey. And in the beginning, I did what he advised and what many people out there will tell you to do with affirmations and reading books. And I repeated seminars over and over again. It helped, but it wasn't really getting to the real reason of why I felt this way. I felt just so incomplete, or that like there was this real Kim was inside the shell and she was like, let me out. and I didn't know how to get to her. So a few years later, I continued my journey and I met another friend who was in the same line of work as that first coach, but she had a different approach. And the way she did it was she did work with the core emotions. She worked on the filters that happen way back here. What was astounding to me is that going through that work with her, the first time I went through it, I worked on relationships because that was the thing that was front of mind for me, that I felt like needed the most healing. And when we did that, I became more consistent in my business. Procrastination wasn't as much of a problem as it had been in the past. I was doing better in my business and my relationships were improving. So it wasn't until later that I got even more specific about how I can unpeel those layers and work on those filters at an even deeper level. But that was the beginning. And what I saw for me, for my family, is I saw that relationships with my business partners got better. How I related to clients and potential clients got better. My relationship with my husband, with my kids got better too. And that's important to me because whenever we talk to other people in a different way and we shift our energy so that we show up in a different way, it shifts their energy too. And we can literally affect generations going forward because we worked on ourselves. So what I do in the work that I do today is I help entrepreneurs uncover those limitations, so those subconscious limitations that maybe they've swept under the rug like I did, or maybe they know they're there, but they don't know what to do with it or how to uncover it or how to shift it. I help them uncover that and shift it into a new energy so that they can show up differently for themselves. And so they can show up differently for the people that are in their world. Thank you for listening.